The Galactic Council gathered in their massive chamber, the tension palpable. Representatives from across the known universe filled the room, each with their unique appearance, glowing eyes, elongated limbs, and various forms of telepathic communication. But they all shared one thing in common: utter confusion about the humans. The latest reports from the front lines baffled the Council once again. How could such a primitive species, one lacking in advanced technology and seemingly without strategic advantage, continue to hold their ground in battles where any logical species would retreat? Counselor Zinrak, a member of the Ulthar species known for their cold, calculating minds, was the first to speak. "I do not understand," Zinrak began, his voice devoid of emotion. "The humans are outnumbered, outgunned, and technologically inferior. And yet they refuse to retreat. They refuse to surrender. It defies logic." The room filled with murmurs of agreement. Zinrak wasn't alone in his bewilderment. This wasn't the first time the Galactic Council had debated the subject of humans, and it likely wouldn't be the last. For months, their warships had clashed with human forces across the galaxy. And while most species would retreat in the face of certain defeat, humans always stood their ground. General Thrax, a towering figure from the Vartok Empire, stood next. His race was known for its military prowess, and he had personally commanded fleets in battle against the humans. "I've seen them firsthand," Thrax growled, his voice tinged with both admiration and frustration. "Their tactics are reckless. They throw themselves into battles they cannot win. But somehow, they do not fall. I lost half my fleet to a battalion of human soldiers armed with outdated ballistic weapons. It makes no sense." The room fell silent as Thrax recounted his experience. The Council knew the general to be a hardened warrior, not one to offer praise lightly. If even he was at a loss to explain the human resilience, then something truly extraordinary was at play. As various species exchanged their own accounts of encounters with the humans, a pattern emerged. It wasn't just that the humans fought bravely. It was that they fought with a determination that bordered on madness. Even when cornered, when victory was an impossibility, they never turned their backs on the battlefield. "Perhaps they are simply too primitive to understand the concept of retreat," one delegate suggested, their voice tinged with condescension. Zinrak shook his head. "No. There must be more. Something we are not seeing. Something we do not understand about them." His glowing eyes narrowed as he contemplated the puzzle of humanity. What if they are not acting out of ignorance, but from some deeper understanding of war that we have yet to grasp? Thrax folded his arms, his eyes narrowing in thought. "There is no strategy in throwing one's life away. I've seen them fight, Zinrak. They know they're going to die, and they charge forward anyway. It is beyond my understanding. But I will say this, their bravery is not born of stupidity. They know the stakes, and they fight regardless." As the Council deliberated, the conversation shifted to the nature of the humans themselves. Could it be that their entire species was simply wired differently? Most galactic species valued survival above all else, retreating to fight another day when the odds were against them. But the humans? They seemed to possess an unshakable belief in standing their ground, even when logic dictated otherwise. "What do they hope to achieve by this?" a delegate from the Zenkari species asked. "Surely they must realize that they cannot win every battle. Their numbers are limited, their resources even more so. Perhaps," Zinrak mused, "they do not see victory in the way we do. For us, survival is paramount. For them, perhaps there is something more." The counselors exchanged uneasy glances. Zinrak's words hinted at a deeper, more unsettling truth. Maybe the humans were fighting for something greater than just survival. But what could that be? General Thrax, ever the warrior, had his own theory. "They fight for pride," he said, his voice low. "Humans have a strange attachment to their identity, their place in the galaxy. They see every battle as a test of their worth. To retreat would be to admit defeat, not just in battle but as a species. That, I believe, is why they never run." The council fell into a contemplative silence. Thrax's words resonated, but they still didn't explain the full picture. pride alone couldn't account for the sheer tenacity with which humans fought. There had to be something more driving them. One of the older members of the council, a being who had lived through centuries of galactic history, finally spoke. "In all my years, I have never encountered a species quite like them. They are a mystery, one we must unravel if we are to ever truly understand them and defeat them." The councilors nodded in agreement. It was clear that humanity's resilience was more than just a quirk. It was a fundamental part of who they were. And if the galactic empires were to continue their campaign against humanity, they needed to understand what made humans so unyielding. "We must investigate further," Zinrak said, his voice sharp with determination. "There is something hidden beneath their actions. A reason why they never flee, even when all logic dictates that they should. We must uncover that reason if we are to have any hope of overcoming them." The decision was unanimous. The Council would send emissaries to study human behavior more closely, to observe them on the battlefield and uncover the truth behind their refusal to retreat. As the meeting adjourned, the councilors left with a sense of unease. Humanity had already proven to be an unpredictable force in the galaxy, and the more they learned about them, the more questions arose. Why did humans never run from war? What secret lay at the core of their defiance? The emissaries would soon find out. Humanity's history is a tapestry woven with conflict, struggle, and an unrelenting will to survive. It is impossible to understand the present nature of humans, their refusal to retreat in battle, without first looking back at the trials that have shaped them. From the earliest days of recorded history, Earth was a battleground. Whether for land, resources, or ideology, humans have fought both each other and the elements for millennia. The two world wars, which ravaged entire continents, left indelible marks on the human psyche. Millions of lives were lost, yet in those darkest moments, humanity's spirit of resistance crystallized. The stories of soldiers fighting in muddy trenches, entire cities bombed into rubble, and civilians enduring endless hardship without losing hope have become central to their identity. Despite overwhelming odds, they never gave up. When all seemed lost, they found new ways to persevere, standing firm even when surrender would have been the more logical choice. One of the most iconic moments was during World War II when Britain faced the relentless onslaught of Nazi Germany. The human resolve shone brightest in their darkest hour. As bombs rained down on London, Prime Minister Winston Churchill's defiant words echoed across the world. "We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall never surrender." These words encapsulated the human belief that surrender was simply not an option, even when defeat seemed inevitable. And Britain didn't fall. This refusal to yield wasn't born out of arrogance, but from a deep-seated understanding that the stakes were higher than any individual battle. However, this trait of endurance isn't just found in the major wars of human history. It runs deeper, embedded in their everyday existence. Long before modern conflicts, humans were struggling to survive in a hostile world. They faced predators far stronger than themselves, braved harsh climates, and found themselves in constant competition with each other. But rather than crumbling under these pressures, they adapted. The ability to innovate, crafting weapons, learning to farm, building shelters, became their greatest asset. This adaptability, paired with their emotional depth, turned them into one of the most resilient species on Earth. While many species in the galaxy might see retreat as a tactical decision, humans view it differently. To them, retreat is synonymous with giving up. It is an admission that survival is not worth fighting for. And this mentality has shaped their entire culture. The phrase, "never give up," isn't just a slogan, it's a core tenet of their existence. From the earliest tribes to modern nations, humans have fought for survival, for freedom, and for a future they could call their own. They have learned that victory isn't always immediate. Sometimes, it takes years, generations even, before the fruits of their struggles are realized. But they are willing to endure that long, painful road, no matter the cost. This tenacity, so foreign to most peaceful galactic cultures, has left other species perplexed. Galactic societies often prioritize survival above all else, retreating when necessary to preserve resources and lives. Humans, by contrast, see certain battles as more than just territorial disputes or resource allocation. They fight for ideas, for freedom, for something beyond the material. It's a philosophical difference that alien species have struggled to comprehend. In many ways, humanity fights not just to win, but because the act of standing firm, even in the face of inevitable defeat, defines who they are. Take, for instance, the famous human general, George Washington. Leading a ragtag group of soldiers against one of the most powerful empires of the time, Washington could have easily given up during the harsh winters and constant defeats. His army was outnumbered, ill-equipped, and demoralized. But he never retreated for good. Through sheer will and strategic brilliance, he managed to turn the tide of the American Revolution, earning his place in human history as a symbol of resilience and unwavering commitment to a cause. Another example is that of guerrilla warfare, a tactic that humans have perfected over centuries of conflict. When faced with larger, more advanced foes, they adapt, using ambushes, sabotage, and unconventional strategies to level the playing field. The human instinct to resist, even when outgunned, stems from their long history of battling overwhelming forces. These tactics, often seen as desperate by other species, have consistently proven effective. What the galaxy doesn't understand is that humans thrive under pressure, turning adversity into strength. From the battlefields of ancient Sparta, where 300 warriors famously held off a massive Persian army, to the jungles of Vietnam where soldiers used their environment to outlast more technologically advanced enemies, humans have always found ways to fight back. They have become legends across their own planet, their stories passed down through generations as a reminder of the value of persistence. This is not to say humans are without fear. They fear loss, they fear pain, they fear defeat just like any other species. But what sets them apart is their ability to push through that fear, to channel it into something more powerful. Humans don't run because they've learned that survival is more than just staying alive. It's about preserving what they believe in. And they believe, deeply, that certain things are worth fighting for at any cost. As the emissaries approach Earth, ready to observe this strange species firsthand, they do not yet understand the full depth of human resilience. What they are about to witness will defy everything they know about war and conflict. The human capacity to endure, to adapt, and to never give up has been honed through centuries of hardship, and the emissaries will soon see this unyielding nature in action. Even when outnumbered and outmatched, humans will always find a way to fight. Because for them, the battle is never truly over until they say it is. The battle raged on the outskirts of a desolate planet, the sky lit up with explosions and plasma fire. The alien armada had arrived with overwhelming force, confident that this skirmish would be nothing more than a swift extermination. On the ground below, a small human military unit braced for the inevitable assault. Outnumbered and outgunned, the humans were little more than a speck in the face of the vast alien army. Yet, their resolve was undeniable. The emissaries had been watching for hours, observing the flow of battle from the safety of a distant outpost. It was clear from the outset that the aliens had the upper hand. Their ships blotted out the sky, and their weapons were far superior in range and firepower. The alien commander, known for his precision and cold calculation, expected the humans to break within the first few minutes of engagement. However, that moment never came. The human forces, though scattered and vastly inferior in number, fought with an intensity that caught the alien commander off guard. From the very start, they had dug in deep, using the terrain to their advantage. The rocky outcrops and narrow valleys served as perfect cover for guerrilla tactics. Hidden snipers took down alien soldiers one by one, and human engineers had laid explosive traps along the enemy's predicted path of advance. Despite suffering heavy losses, the human unit showed no signs of retreat. For every soldier that fell, another took their place with grim determination. Their tactics were unorthodox, infuriatingly unpredictable, but undeniably effective. The alien forces, accustomed to more orderly and strategic engagements, struggled to adapt. They were used to overwhelming firepower deciding battles quickly, but the humans didn't play by the same rules. At the heart of the human unit was their commander, a seasoned veteran whose calm under pressure belied the chaos around him. He moved through the ranks, barking orders and making rapid decisions, adapting to the ever-shifting battlefield. His strategy wasn't to defeat the alien force head-on, that would be impossible. Instead, he aimed to stretch them thin, disrupt their formation, and create confusion. The humans' smaller numbers allowed them to move quickly, striking at weak points before melting back into the landscape. The alien emissaries watched in disbelief. From their perspective, this wasn't a battle. It was a massacre in slow motion. Every moment the humans resisted only prolonged the inevitable. Surely, it would be more logical to retreat and preserve what little of their forces remained. But the humans fought on, pushing forward despite the mounting casualties. It was as though retreat simply didn't exist as an option. The mind of one human soldier flickered into focus. He had seen death before, in skirmishes far from home, and every time it felt the same, a cold knot in his stomach, a tightening of his chest. But running? That wasn't something he could consider. His family, his people, his home, all of that was back on Earth, and if they gave ground here, it wouldn't just be this battle that was lost. It would be the future. His future. Their future. His thoughts weren't unique. Across the battlefield, human soldiers clung to their memories, their hopes, and their duty. This fight wasn't just about survival. It was about something far bigger. The alien forces pressed harder, determined to break the human line once and for all. Waves of heavily armored infantry poured into the ravines where the humans had set their defenses. Explosions shook the ground, and the air was thick with dust and the acrid smell of plasma burns. The aliens, despite their technological superiority, couldn't seem to land a decisive blow. Every time they gained ground, the humans pulled off another ambush or strategic withdrawal to lure them into a trap. It was infuriating for the alien commander, who watched his forces be outmaneuvered time and again by what he had initially considered a primitive species. But now, even the alien commander couldn't deny the humans were fighting on a level far beyond what their technology or numbers should have allowed. They weren't just holding the line. They were actively dismantling the alien strategy, piece by piece. Just when the battle seemed to be reaching its breaking point, the humans launched a counterattack. It wasn't large, but it was surgical. Using the chaos they had sown, the human commander sent a small strike force behind enemy lines. A handful of elite soldiers, equipped with cloaking technology, infiltrated the alien command post. They were few, and the mission was dangerous, but their objective was clear: cut off the head of the snake. The emissaries could only watch as this daring move unfolded. They saw the small group move with precision, undetected by the alien security systems, before striking swiftly. Within minutes, the alien command structure was in disarray. Their leader fell, and with him, the coherence of the entire invasion force. The remaining alien soldiers, scattered and leaderless, faltered. The alien emissaries were stunned. They had expected the humans to crumble under pressure, to flee when defeat was all but assured. Yet here they stood, victorious against all odds. The emissaries were forced to confront the reality they had long tried to ignore. The humans were far more formidable than anyone had imagined. They didn't just fight for territory or resources. They fought for something deeper, an intangible, unyielding drive that the emissaries struggled to understand. The battlefield lay quiet now, save for the sounds of humans attending to their wounded and gathering their dead. The emissaries could see it clearly. Humanity's victory wasn't just in their tactics or technology. It was in their refusal to back down, their willingness to sacrifice for something larger than themselves. The aliens had lost because they couldn't grasp the depth of human resolve. For humans, every battle was a fight for their very existence, and that made them unstoppable. As the emissaries prepared to report back to the Council, they understood that the humans would not be defeated easily. While some would argue that humanity's actions were reckless, there would be no denying the deeper truth. Humanity's strength wasn't just in their weapons or strategies, but in their unshakable belief in what they were fighting for. They didn't flee because the concept of retreat was alien to them. Their fight was for survival, for a future they could shape with their own hands. And that made them the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever encountered. The emissaries returned to the council chambers, their minds heavy with the weight of their findings. They had witnessed humanity's resilience firsthand, and now it was time to present their report. What they had seen on the battlefield was just the surface of something much deeper, a psychological and philosophical strength that ran through the core of human nature. The council waited, eager to understand the root cause behind humanity's refusal to retreat, even in the face of certain defeat. The emissaries began by explaining that humans possessed an unshakable psychological resilience, one that seemed almost instinctual. At the heart of it was their survival instinct, honed over millennia of evolution. Human brains were wired to survive at all costs, and this wiring extended far beyond the individual. It was not just about self-preservation, it was about the survival of their species, their communities, and everything they held dear. The Council had always assumed that fear would eventually break the human will, but they had underestimated how humans process fear. In humans, fear didn't paralyze, it propelled them forward. The fight-or-flight response, common to many species, manifested differently in humans. While other species might flee when outmatched, humans had learned to harness their fear, using it as fuel for their determination. The adrenaline coursing through their veins heightened their senses, sharpened their reflexes, and allowed them to push beyond their limits. This biological response, paired with their unique mental resilience, gave them a psychological advantage that few in the galaxy understood. But it wasn't just their biology that made them so formidable. The emissaries explained that humans had a deeply ingrained philosophical outlook on war and conflict. To humans, conflict was not something to be avoided at all costs. Instead, it was seen as an inevitable part of existence, a necessary means of growth, justice, and progress. Throughout their history, human philosophers, leaders, and thinkers had grappled with the concept of war, and while many sought peace, they understood that some battles were worth fighting. Wars of survival, wars of liberation, and wars for justice were not to be feared but embraced when necessary. This worldview contrasted sharply with that of most galactic species. For many, survival was the ultimate goal. If retreating could ensure the preservation of their lives and resources, then it was the logical choice. To these species, surrender or retreat was a practical decision, not a sign of weakness. But humans viewed survival through a different lens. They believed that some things were worth more than just staying alive. Sacrifice for a greater cause, whether that be family, freedom, or the future, was a concept deeply rooted in human culture. Surrender was not an option if it meant losing the very things they fought for. The emissaries noted that this philosophy of sacrifice was foreign to most species. The idea that one would willingly endure pain, loss, or even death for an abstract cause baffled many in the galaxy. But for humans, this willingness to sacrifice was what made them so dangerous. They didn't fight for material gain or territory. They fought for ideals, for the people they loved, and for the hope of a better tomorrow. These emotional bonds played a significant role in their unyielding nature. Humans didn't just fight for themselves, they fought for their families, their communities, and the generations yet to come. The Council listened intently as the emissaries delved into the emotional depth of humanity. Love, fear of loss, and hope drove them in ways that no other species seemed to understand. A human soldier on the battlefield wasn't just fighting to win a skirmish. They were fighting for their children back home, for the legacy of their ancestors, and for the future of their species. This emotional connection made them more committed, more relentless, and ultimately, more dangerous. A species that fought not just for survival but for a better future was one that couldn't be easily defeated. As the emissaries' report came to a close, the Council was left with a sobering realization. Humans didn't fear war in the same way other species did. For them, war wasn't something to avoid but something to face head-on when the stakes were high enough. They didn't run because running meant abandoning the very things that made life worth living. To humans, victory wasn't just about winning a battle or preserving their lives. It was about ensuring the survival of their species, their values, and their legacy. The Council now understood that humanity's refusal to flee wasn't reckless or irrational. It was deeply rooted in their psychology and philosophy. They fought for something far greater than themselves, and that made them an unstoppable force. The question was no longer why humans didn't run from war, but how the galaxy would respond to this revelation. Could they find a way to coexist with such a species, or would they be forced to continue their futile attempts to conquer them? The final reflection left the council in silence. Humans had learned, through centuries of hardship and struggle, that survival wasn't just about staying alive. It was about preserving what mattered most. And for that, they would fight, endure, and never back down. The council now knew the truth. Humans would never run, not because they didn't fear death, but because they feared losing everything that made life meaningful. In the end, one of the emissaries summed up their findings in a single, powerful statement. Humans never run, because they've learned that victory isn't just about winning battles. It's about surviving as a species, no matter the cost. And with that, the council was left to ponder the implications of this unstoppable force that had emerged from the unlikeliest of places, a small, blue planet at the edge of the galaxy, whose people refused to bow to the odds.